I saw the headlines this morning and I wrote, wow, raising their earnings forecast by as much as 24% from energy to mining. Then came the conference call. This is as good as it gets. You were on that call. What happened and what did analysts question and respond?
Well, initially the CFO said 1Q was the high watermark for this year in terms of profits adjusted profit per share. And they went through the typical introductory comments, through their slides. The questions started coming, and it wasn't until...
So that wasn't even in a response to a question. That was part of the presentation.
It was kind of right at the top of Brad Haverson going on and talking to the investors. And it came, and initially I thought maybe I had missed what he had said before that. I thought, no, okay, hold on, let's wait a second. And then by the third or fourth question into the call, one of the analysts drilled into it and said, wait, you're saying this is the high watermark, so that 2Q, 3Q, 4Q. He actually said, wait, listen, historically 2Q is your best profit quarter for the year. And the CFO said, that's right. And we're saying 1Q will be the best profit quarter for this year.
Why were they so sure? What did he justify it with?
Well,
because I just want to question you because, when I look at their forecasts, they didn't have any potential impacts on future geopolitical risks or increased trade tensions included in the outlook.
Right. So there's a couple things to think here. One, the CFO is being very transparent by putting this out there to the market, right? Two, he's saying, listen, we did not include in our forward-looking forecasts the trade implications, the possible rising costs from that. We did not see a follow-through of raw material costs the way we expect to in 2Q, 3Q, 4Q, right? We're talking about largely here steel.
Okay.
So steel prices might have been lower in the first quarter, and they had great revenues. So there you are. You're talking about a very large margin. And so they're saying, listen, it's just not going to be as good in 2Q, 3Q, 4Q. We'll still stay within the range that we had forecasted to the market, but we hit the high end of the range in the first quarter. So don't expect for us to keep hitting that high end or going further out.
Joe, what about the areas of strength of the company? Talking about mining equipment, that's what was an area of strength. North American construction, China infrastructure. Are there implications that we can take away for those three areas from this forecast?
Well, there is that. On the positive side, remember, we're still saying that China's looking like it's going to continue its strength, right? We keep wondering when they're going to say that it's not going to in China, and they keep saying it's going to continue strength. North America looks great. Latin America, which had been the bottom of the barrel, is finally coming out of that, and that's looking solid. But when you look at Caterpillar and the way people trade it, it's a forward-looking stock. People in a lot of ways treat it the way they do any other economic indicator. And when they're being told, well, the margins aren't going to be as good as we had in the first quarter, they'll still expand, but not be as gangbusters, then people start wondering, well, where are we right now in the cycle? Like one of the questions was, on the call was, wait a minute, it seems like even after all the cash you've spent, it seems like you have extra cash to spend. We're trying to figure out, are you putting that towards M&A, or are you telling us that we've hit a peak and there's something for us to look out for? The CEO said, listen, based on your words, we're telling you we're not talking about a peak, but we don't want to talk about M&A either. So there are those questions kind of out in the market of what else to be looking forward to.
Just looking at the share performance as well, because these guys have been really pounded as well as a bellwether for any potential trade skirmishes, particularly with China. I was just pulling up the breakdown of their revenues, whether it's Latin America, whether it's Asia Pacific, North America, and if you guys want to pull up my chart, you can see that in terms of the individual performances. That's actually very small, but Asia Pacific is the yellow line, so you can see that here. In particular, North America is this one too, so you get a sense of the sheer dominance of the weight here. Do you just come off this quite surprised?
I think everybody is a little bit surprised, right? It had been so good. I mean, Karen Ubelhart was in this morning saying, we expected a good quarter, and it was an even better quarter, right? And that was before the call. And so that's really how this thing has traded. I mean, sure, it was a bad first quarter. They got hit by all the trade discussions, but... yeah.
Was this a mismanagement of future expectations or just lowering expectations to such an extent that you're kind of going to surprise to the upside?
I'm not sure about that. I think that's one that still has to be figured out in the market. But if you're talking a day trade, right, it's obvious that people had been expecting a better second quarter.
Yes.
Good numbers going through the end of the year. And they at least got a taste of maybe that's not true.
I just want to mention very quickly one of Caterpillar's clients that also came out with numbers and more particularly discussed an issue at a mine, and that's Freeport-McMoRan. Those shares are down 15% right now. And it seems to do with its big mine in Indonesia, right? That there's been some kind of rule change there.
They essentially had an agreement that was struck in the 90s that allowed for tailings offtake from one of their mines that would go down a river into the lowlands, because everything around this mine is rainforest. And they essentially said this had just been brought to them by the government, and they said it is impossible to run this mine if we do not have that tailings agreement to run it through this river. It sounds crazy, but yes, this is something that had been struck in the 90s.
How big is that mine for them?
I mean, it's one of the largest, if not. I'm not exactly sure the exact numbers, but I mean, it's important. This is quite important for them. And by saying we cannot actually operate a mine if you take this away from us, I mean, you're seeing it in the stock.
Right.